The Triumph Renown emerged in a Britain that was still recovering from the trauma of the Second World War, yet hungry for symbols of dignity, refinement, and national resilience. When Triumph unveiled the 1800 Town and Country Saloon in 1946, later evolving into the 2000 and officially becoming known as the Renown series, it wasn't merely another car. It was a statement of pre-war elegance reintroduced into a post-war world that had forgotten what elegance looked like. These early models carried the unmistakable razor-edge styling crafted by Mulliners of Birmingham, giving the car's sharp creases, upright lines, and a dignified form reminiscent of luxury British saloons of the 1930s. In the austere years of rationing, petrol coupons, and heavy taxation, the Renown felt like a whisper of the old world Britain many believed had been lost forever. Its most distinctive feature remained that formal, almost aristocratic silhouette. The high waistline, stately roofline, and squared-off rear quarters made the Renown appear as if it stepped straight out of a Rolls-Royce showroom, despite being marketed as a medium-sized executive car. This styling wasn't an accident. Triumph wanted to occupy a niche that lay somewhere between optimism and aspiration. Government officials, business owners, and export buyers loved that they could drive a sedan that looked substantially more expensive than it actually was. The Renown also represented a rare continuation of coach-built tradition in an era rapidly moving toward all-steel monocoque bodies. Mulliners handcrafted its body panels over a conventional chassis, giving a level of craftsmanship competitors couldn't quite match. This craftsmanship extended into the cabin, where the Renown offered one of the most luxurious interiors available to the middle-class buyer. Polished with veneers, leather upholstery, traditional knobs, and thick carpeting gave the driver an impression of being transported back to pre-war refinement. Even though the engineering beneath, Triumph's 1,776 cubic centimeters and later 2,088 cubic centimeters four-cylinder engines, was modest, the atmosphere within the Renown made it feel much grander than its mechanical reality. For buyers who value prestige over power, the car was almost perfect. One of the key factors pushing Triumph toward building the Renown was the British government's export or die strategy. Britain needed foreign currency desperately, and manufacturers were encouraged, even pressured, to develop cars that could sell well abroad. Triumph believed the Renown's formal, upper-class appearance would resonate especially in the colonies, America, and Europe. And indeed, for a few short years, the Renown enjoyed reasonable export success. Its unique styling set apart from the slab-sided Chevrolet and Pontiac sedans sold abroad, and it offered European sophistication with British charm. Yet under the surface of this early success, cracks were already forming. Triumph's resources were stretched thin, the car's construction methods were outdated, and post-war steel shortages made production painfully expensive. The Renown was trying to live in two eras at once: the nostalgic pre-war world of coach-built prestige and the fast-modernizing post-war age of mass production. For a while, buyers didn't mind. But as the 1950s approached, the market began shifting in ways that would eventually make the Renown increasingly difficult to justify. By the early 1950s, the Triumph Renown found itself increasingly out of step with the evolving automotive landscape. In 1949, Triumph had introduced the updated Renown with a larger 2.1-liter engine to improve performance, yet it still remained slower and less agile than many of its emerging rivals. Britain was slowly moving past the austerity period, and buyers had begun demanding lighter, more modern, more efficient vehicles. Cars like the Rover P4 and the Standard Vanguard embodied this shift, offering sleeker designs and more contemporary engineering. Against these, the Renown's proud, upright silhouette suddenly felt like an anachronism, distinguished, yes, but no longer forward-looking. The Renown's body construction had also become a liability. The coach-built approach, once a badge of honor, now cost Triumph far more than competitors using fully pressed steel bodies. Mulliners could not stamp out panels at the same speed or consistency as mass production plants, making the Renown time-consuming and expensive to build. Each unit represented a labor-intensive investment, and Triumph was already financially fragile after its pre-war bankruptcy and wartime struggles. The Renown, despite its premium aura, didn't generate enough profit to justify its complexity. Buyers were also becoming increasingly sensitive to ownership costs, and repairing or repainting the Renown's elaborate, hand-fitted bodywork was noticeably more expensive than repairing a newer monocoque car. Mechanically, the Renown was equally conservative. It rode on a traditional separate chassis and used mechanicals derived from earlier Triumph models. While reliable, these components lacked sophistication compared to rivals adopting overhead valve engines, independent suspensions, and improved braking systems. As roads improved and expectations rose, the Renown's sedate performance became harder to overlook. It was not a car for enthusiasts or for those seeking innovation. It was a car for tradition, and tradition was losing its shine. Triumph also found itself competing indirectly with brands that had managed to modernize without abandoning their sense of prestige. Wolseley, Humber, and Rover offered vehicles that retained British respectability but embraced 1950s styling cues. The Renown, in comparison, looked increasingly like a relic. What had previously made it stand out, its resemblance to a scaled-down Rolls-Royce, now made it appear old-fashioned. Export markets, once the Renown's lifeline, were also evolving. American buyers found it underpowered and too formal. Australians wanted ruggedness. Europeans gravitated towards smaller, more efficient cars. Inside Triumph's management, the writing was on the wall. The company needed to move toward modern, mass-market models to survive. Standard Motor Company, which had acquired Triumph in 1945, saw little long-term value in continuing a coach-built luxury line. Their logistics, finances, and production philosophy were increasingly geared toward platform sharing and standardized parts. The Renown did not fit into that future. By 1952, production numbers had dwindled. The car's reputation was slipping, and its legacy as a craftsman's machine could no longer counterbalance the commercial realities. It was clear that the Renown could not remain viable as Triumph moved into the mid-1950s. By 1953, Triumph made the difficult decision to end production of the Renown. It wasn't just one factor that sealed its fate. It was a convergence of economic pressures, shifting consumer expectations, and a rapidly modernizing global automotive marketplace. The Renown had simply become too expensive to produce, too conservative to excite buyers, and too outdated to compete. Triumph's resources were immediately redirected towards smaller, more profitable cars, such as the TR sports car line, and later the Herald. In many ways, the Renown's death allowed Triumph to focus on the identity that eventually propelled the brand into international acclaim, affordable sports cars rather than stately executive saloons. After its discontinuation, the Renown quickly faded from mainstream memory. Cars that had once been symbols of prestige were now overshadowed by cleaner, more modern designs. Second-hand buyers increasingly avoided the Renown, frightened by the complexity of its body panels and the difficulty of sourcing Mulliner-specific parts. Many cars suffer from rust, neglect, or simply the financial impossibility of restoration. As the decades passed, fewer and fewer survived. By the 1970s and 1980s, the Renown had transitioned from a common classic to a rare sight, cherished only by small groups of enthusiasts who appreciated its formal styling and craftsmanship. Yet despite its decline, the Triumph Renown remains a historically significant piece of Britain's automotive story. It captures a transitional moment when the industry moved from handcrafted luxury to high-volume industrial efficiency. It also reflects post-war British optimism, a car built during hardship, meant to symbolize dignity at a time when most people were more concerned with ration books than refinement. In hindsight, the Renown styling, once criticized for being outdated, is now celebrated for its elegance. Collectors today seek out the car precisely because it embodies a design philosophy that vanished soon after. The Renown also left a quieter legacy. It demonstrated that Triumph could still build desirable cars despite its turbulent financial past. Even though it didn't survive commercially, it maintained the Triumph name in a respectable light during a critical recovery period. Its production kept workers employed, allowed the brand to stay visible in export markets, and paved the way for the TR series and later successes. Without the Renown bridging the difficult post-war years, Triumph's revival might have been far more uncertain. In modern classic car circles, the Renown enjoys a niche but passionate following. Survivors are often meticulously restored, appearing at British classic shows as reminders of a bygone era of craftsmanship. Their upright razor-edge design makes them instantly recognizable, and their rarity ensures admiration from enthusiasts who understand their place in the lineage of British motoring. While the Triumph Renown may not be widely remembered by the general public, those who know the story recognize it as one of the last great coach-built British saloons made for everyday use. A dignified, distinctive, and ultimately doomed attempt to carry pre-war luxury into the modern age.